Hey, everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 168th, count them, 168th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are glad to have you all with us. We've got, as usual, a very packed 2 hours and 20 minutes to deal with the primary issues of election protection and protecting our Mother Earth. We're starting with 25 folks, co-hosted here by the great Steve Caruso and Mike Hirsch, just being joined by Wendy LEDERMAN, and somebody needs to mute, but we are also rebroadcasting at the Pacifica, Progressive Radio Network, and through the Pacifica Network. It is a gray day here in California, been uncharacteristically gray, unlike the beautiful beach scene you see behind me. But what can I tell you? Life's an illusion. Maya Reason, you want to encourage people, please, to join our YouTube channel. And if we can post in the chat exactly how to do that, that'd be great. But if you want to talk to us about that and also about the opening for a supervisor for the upcoming Pacifica Radio Network election, can you give us the lowdown or the upsourcing on all that? Maya Reason? Are you with us,
Okay,
Maya?
I am unmuted now. I apologize.
Go for it.
At any rate, I'm going to start with the second first, which is the position to be the National Election Supervisor for the upcoming station board elections within the Pacifica Network. This is a really important position, and we're hoping for someone who has some kind of expertise in running elections. And the job is posted prominently on the Pacifica Foundation website. I'm going to show you that website right now. And as you see, right at the top, it says today is the very last day. And then if you select details, you get to the job description. So I'm going to put in the chat, it's just really very simple. It's pacifica.org is how you get to the website. And I will go ahead and post just got too many things going on here. I'm not seeing my Zoom, I'm sorry. Oh, I see why. I have to stop the share. And now I'm going, oh, and I already put everything in the chat about the election. Now, as far as our YouTube channel goes.
Well, let me emphasize that this job of running the Pacifica election, we see Ray McClendon with us. How you doing, Ray? Is actually a paying gig. And, and it's a big deal to run the Pacifica national election. And we have lots of people on these calls who are experienced with election issues. So take a look, if you will. Okay, Mama.
I'm sorry. I now I have to. Oh, here it is. So here's the link for our to go over to YouTube if you would, and give this.
Yes, we want people to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. I actually watch a lot of documentaries on YouTube. I've been watching some amazing documentaries on new technologies. And since I can't figure out, I'm actually a Netflix subscriber. I can't figure out how to work it. I have to get my grandchildren over here to help me. But YouTube has a lot of great stuff to offer. But we do want people to please sign up to our YouTube channel. I think we have about 30, 35 people on it now. And we'd love to, which is about how many people we have on the call right now. So we'd love to have you do that. Please. Myla, can you give us the detail?
Well, I just put the link in the chat, and if people look up, if you go to YouTube, if you're listening on the radio now, you can go to YouTube and search for Green Grassroots Election Protection, and that will get you to our YouTube channel, and we really hope that you will subscribe and like and share and tell your friends about it. Let's grow this channel so that we can reach more people.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We're gonna welcome Alyssa Matras to our call in San Francisco. She's apparently out of sitting Shiva for the 49ers. And but we do want to start. We know that Cynthia Papermaster is about to go have lunch with Nancy Pelosi. But we do want to say first hi to Ray McClendon. Ray, you are going to tell us a bit about the upcoming the latest on the situation with Fani Willis, if you would, please.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and we are waiting on the summary positions to be made by the defense that brought this action, and also by the state. Coming up sometime later this week, we hope that there'll be a schedule for that.
Well, let's explain. This is the major prosecution of Donald Trump in that for his attempt to steal the Georgia election.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who are not familiar with it, we're not on last week, but where we are right now is that the defense, a couple of the defendants have put forth some salacious allegations as to why Fani Willis, the DA for Fulton County, should be removed from the case. The Georgia law is very specific about how you can be removed, and it's basically for financial conflict of interest. What Trump and a couple of other defendants are doing is trying to muddy the water, create some salacious allegations that will move public opinion and hopefully, in their minds, hopefully force the judge to recuse her. If there's no Fani Willis, there will be no case. That's what we need to make clear. There's no other DA in the state of Georgia that would take this case on to prosecute. Therefore, this case would, in all likelihood, go away if Fani Willis is removed. Number one. Number two, Fani Willis is the premier RICO statute prosecutor in the state. So nobody else has her expertise. So nobody is willing and nobody has the expertise, and therefore this will likely go away. As I mentioned, based on the Georgia law, it's really not even a closed question, but it is going to be a closed question because of the salaciousness of it and the dogged determination of Trump and his folks to make it an issue. They have trying to introduce some new allegations now to refute Wade's testimony, the special prosecutor who had a romantic relationship with DA Willis, alleging that they got some cell phone data that showed that he was in the vicinity of her, 12,000 times over some period of time. How they can, first of all, even introduce this as evidence is a question. Second, it really doesn't prove anything anyway. But again, this is further muddying the water. What we want to see happen is people are standing with Fani. People are recognize that no Fani, no case. And the great thing is that the community now is rallying around her, and hopefully that will make a difference when the final summaries are made, the closing arguments, if you will, on this episode come forward, hopefully later this week. So we'll have a lot of people in the courtroom supporting her, and we hope we can get a fast ruling from the judge.
Well, this is not small potatoes here. The bottom line is that Fani Willis is the elected DA, right, of Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, not a small town. And she has brought the case against Donald Trump for having tried to steal the Georgia election and presidential election in 2020. And this is also not a small case. We're basically dealing with treason here. And Donald Trump has just been found guilty of an $80 million judgment against the woman he essentially raped. And now the state of New York has won a almost $500 million settlement on Trump for defrauding half the people in business in New York. And then we'll be dealing with a case here, I think the first case in U.S. history, where a sitting president has been charged with attempting to steal an election. And they're going at this by attacking the elected prosecutor who's bringing the case in the hopes that they'll kill the case. Is that a reasonable summary, Ray?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's
they're
classic
using
from his textbook, Trump. He's always going to attack the judges. He's going to attack the prosecutors, calling them corrupt. And that's what he's doing here. So this is no surprise. He does it with impunity. And we just hope that we can keep this case going because, as you said, it's important. And there's also a case that he couldn't pardon himself against, even if he were to become president again. So that's another reason we need to keep this case alive.
Now, does this case involve the taped phone call that he made to the Secretary of State asking him to, can you just find me 12, 13,000 additional votes? That's all I need. Is that part of this case?
Yeah, that's what got this case started. When the tape came out, when that broke, where he asked for 11,780 votes, which was the exact number that he needed to overturn Biden. Biden won Georgia by 11,799 votes. So he asked the Secretary of State specifically to find the number of votes that he would win Georgia by 1 vote.
That's mind-boggling. And everybody in America heard that tape. So the way he's getting around it now is to attack the personal life of the elected prosecutor of the state of Fulton County.
And don't forget that we've had already several, I believe it's 4, maybe 5 guilty pleas under this indictment. We've already had Sidney Powell, Chesbrough, Jenna Ellis, as well as one of the local Georgia fake electors, have all pleaded guilty on a case that a lot of people said should never have been brought, should never have been this broad. But she knows how to prosecute RICO, and she's already had people begin to flip. So they are nervous, and they know that there are some others that will likely flip if this case continues.
Jeez, it's unbelievable. Ray, I'm going to give you a standing invitation. Please come back next week. We won't be meeting again in 2 weeks, but this is, this is one of those things that they slip under the radar. They come at you with ugly stuff. Anybody who's really interested should look at Fani Willis's testimony of about 5 minutes. One of the most powerful things I've ever seen. Way too powerful for primetime TV. She was amazing. Law and Order would never have been able to handle this. But anyway, I got Dennis Bernstein. Ray. Dennis is the host of the great Flashpoint show, nationally syndicated out of KPFA in Berkeley. We have 53 people with us. Dennis, go ahead, please. I think you're unmuted.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Really appreciate all the good information. I'm going to make a few people angry now, but I need to raise this issue. What do we know about I'm talking about not the personal life. What do we know about the legal work and the history that Fani Willis depended on when she hired this person to be her number 2 person on this prosecution? What do we know about him? Was he up to it? Do you suppose she made a mistake? There might have been too much pressure for such a big case and somebody who doesn't have this kind of background and experience dealing at this level?
Well, And that's a great question. And let me put it this way. He was not the first choice because people don't want to go up against Trump. It takes very courageous people to decide to step up. In fact, one of the first people that DA Willis went to request that they become special prosecutor was former Governor Roy Barnes. Roy Barnes actually testified during this most recent set of hearings that he turned her down because he didn't want to be under the scrutiny that would come by going up against Trump. He specifically cited that when he was governor, he had to have bodyguards. And at this point in his life, he did not want to have bodyguards again. So he turned her down. So there were very few lawyers with credentials that wanted to step up to this. Now, as to the veracity of the case, you have to look, he is not the only special prosecutor. One of the preeminent special prosecutors that does RICO in the state, lawyers that is one of the preeminent RICO lawyers in the state is also one of the special prosecutors. So it is not just Wade. Also, the veracity of the work is covered by the fact that, as many of you will recall, there was a special grand jury that heard evidence for over a year to come up with a summary recommendation. And after that special grand jury came up with the summary recommendation, they turned that over to a regular grand jury, which then heard the evidence and made the case with the indictments. So there's no question that the veracity of the work is there, the competence in the work is there, the rate at which he was paid was appropriate. This is not about whether or not he is a quality attorney. He's also operated as a municipal judge. This is Trump's playbook that I hope we don't fall into, just as he did with Kaplan. Remember, he tried to, with Attorney Kaplan in the E. Jean Carroll case, they put out a smear campaign there that there was a mentor-protege relationship between Judge Kaplan, no relation, and Attorney Kaplan from some 30 years ago. So this is nothing new for them to do. The veracity is there. He was not the first choice because so many other people just don't want to go up against Trump, knowing what their personal lives will look like being on a case of this magnitude.
Boy, that's an important point. Dennis, I'm going to come right back to you for 1 second, though. We have also this idea of physical assault from Trump people actually came up in the U.S. Congress. There were a number of Republican Congress people who said they did not want to vote against Trump because they were afraid for their families. I mean, this is like part 4 of The Godfather here. It's unreal.
Absolutely.
Dennis, we really appreciate it. Do you have more for Ray, Dennis Bernstein? Dennis, are you unmuted? Yeah,
not
go ahead.
now. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just thinking about it.
Well, it's an important question.
I may have watched that case as close as anybody in this world. Along with Greg Palast, we mini watched it by detail, and we saw what Ray just expressed, that there was going to be extraordinary pressure, that it was going to be a dangerous situation, and that anybody who was going to step forward needed to be ready to stand against it. I'm sorry that Fani, knowing where she was in the world, used some pretty bad judgment in terms of mixing the public with the perfect. And she's not going to be the first person in the world that gets pursued because of their genius in other ways to undermine the work. And I'm very disappointed. I'll leave it at that.
Well, on the other hand, of course, and Dennis is a great reporter, and we're glad to have. If you want to come back next week, and we'll see where we're at with this. If you want to bring Greg with you, that'd be great. But the bottom line here is the content of the charges. To me, when a defendant, when someone who's been accused of something, attacks the persona of the person that's charging them, it's a sure sign they can't stand the heat on the content. And so the fact that they're coming after her, which is expected, and you may be right about her judgment, but the bottom line is the facts have passed the muster of a grand jury, and they're not going to be able to contest the facts. Is that right, Ray?
Well, that's great. And that's right. And this is Trump's MO. So I understand we all have, it was not the right thing to do. We all have flaws, but she is also more courageous than 99.9% of the people that are out there. There's nobody else in Georgia that would have taken this case. Nobody. And so I think we need to support her and lift her up and applaud her for carrying the weight of this entire
I'd like to respond if I could.
On her shoulders, because
Nobody
else would do it. I mean, if you want the case to go away, that's fine. That's fine. We can beat her down.
I don't want the case to go. I don't want to be intimidated, but I'm going to ask you, Ray, this question.
I'm not trying to intimidate you.
It sounds like, if I don't agree, I'm a Trumpist. But anyway, if you were her advisor, if you were the manager of the case, Ray, and considering all the decisions, the major decisions that are made, would you advise her, knowing everything you know, would you advise her to hire him? That would have been your choice too?
Okay, from what I know of the facts, she hired him before they had a romantic relationship.
Let's invite Greg.
Okay.
I appreciate that invitation.
Okay.
If you want to talk about this, there's a deeper way to talk about it. And I feel like you're coming down the path of intimidation instead of information.
No,
I know Ray well.
Trying to intimidate you at all. I was just stating.
That's what it feels like to me.
No,
Okay,
it wouldn't be.
I think you're being passive aggressive with that now. I'm not trying to do.
I had no.
I was not.
Okay.
If I don't agree with you, I'm a Trumpist. That's passive.
No, that's not what he
came
said.
out of my mouth, sir. That never came out of my mouth.
Dennis, let's listen. I think you and Ray should talk off camera with Greg. I know Ray well enough. I know you well enough. There's no intimidation here, but it's a very touchy subject. There's no doubt about it. That Trump chose well here, but his batting average in court has not been too good. And if Fani Willis, with whatever help she gets, can make this case, it's going to stand on the facts. We hope. But Ray, you should know Dennis is a very tough reporter, and follows these things, and he's in league with the great Greg Palast, so who knows Georgia inside and out. Ray, Dennis, I'm going to suggest I'll give you Ray's contacts and vice versa, and you should have Ray on your show. And this is a huge deal, this case, and it's not going well. And what he says, about people being intimidated, you're in Georgia, controlled by Republicans, takes a lot of courage to go ahead and take on Donald Trump. But Dennis, your credentials are also impeccable, and let's pursue this. Okay, Dennis,
Sluggo, I hate to break in, but there are a couple of guests who have a limited amount of time.
I
understand. We have to kind of wrap this up pretty quickly.
It takes a lot of courage to report from Georgia. That's why our main source has been Greg Palast, to stay on the ground and to follow it detail by detail. I thank you all for the time, and you should invite
Dennis.
Greg on.
Stay on, come anytime. Ray, is there anything well, Tatanka has a quick hand. Tatanka is, and then Ray will let you go if you want, but we want you back next week, please.
Okay.
Ray, there's a quick question, doesn't have to do with this case. Part of the MO of the Republicans right now is to make sure that the weak link that prevented them from overturning the election, to get rid of any of those, which in battleground states means who counts the votes. Can you tell me what the situation is now in Georgia? Are you convinced that we will get a fair vote count?
No, I'm not. I can't say that because the QAnon MAGA folk have been doing several things over the last 3 years. Number one, they have been padding the local election boards with their folks. That's number one, and that's who controls both the elections and also the voter purges in different counties. Now there is legislation that would change some of the rules on voter purges. We have some of the most lax voter purge rules in Georgia. Many of you might have heard of literally hundreds of thousands of voters being challenged by individual registered voters that have QAnon background. So those are two of the biggest issues. Now, in the larger counties, we can handle that because there is a better balance of sophisticated players on those boards, even though they might be in the minority, in order to fight back against that. But in a lot of these counties, outside of Metro, that's a huge issue. So what we're going to have to do is come up with a statewide voter monitoring, voter chaplaincy, whatever you want to call it, process, where we will have folks on the ground around local polling locations with local boards. Remember in this case that we were just talking about, one of the critical areas was a small county called Coffee County, where the local election board was controlled by Republicans, and they are the ones who let Sidney Powell and that group in violation of state law to review those voting machines illegally. We could see more of that happen going forward if we don't have diligence from independent or progressive poll monitors, because they will be out. The QAnon folks will be out in force. So that'll be one of the things that we'll be doing a test run on for the primary that comes up on May the 21st to get ready for the general election. But we'll need a lot of poll monitors, and we're going to also be tied in. We're working with John Steiner and some other people to look at a cadre of lawyers that will be able to get information to on a precinct by precinct level when we see irregularities come up at voting locations and with local school boards. There are 159 counties in Georgia, so we'll need monitors in a minimum at 159 plus locations.
Thank you.
There will be tonight. I'm going to call on John Steiner. You mentioned him. Then we'll go to CYNTHIA PAPERMASTER. Do you want to mention that Andrea Miller is on the call, and she's got an event coming up on Thursday. We also have another Zoom call tonight at 7 Pacific time to deal with pretty much what you're talking about here, Ray, in terms of election auditing. John Steiner, do you want to get in a quick word here?
Yeah, Ray, a quick question. What can people do to support Fani Willis?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is anything that they can do on supporting her via social media through responses to some of the articles that have come out that really don't understand how Georgia works and what the issues are before that should be before the court, and not the salacious components of this, which again, ethically are a problem, but don't relate specifically to the case. We need to acknowledge. And the first one is, there are people going around with the hashtag I stand with Fani. Number two, people need to understand that no Fani, no case. Those are the two things. There was an article in the Atlantic last week saying that she should step aside. That means the case goes away. We just need to be, if that's your position, that's fine. It just means the case goes away. Just recognize what you're saying when you say that. It's not, okay, we'll find another prosecutor. We know here in Georgia, we know that there, and I went through this last week, there's an agency called the prosecutor's office for the state, the prosecutor's committee that would take this over. The head of that has already intimated in so many words that he would not be willing to move forward with identifying another DA. So stand with Fani, and also make sure that people know no Fani, no case.
Ray, is there anything
Okay,
that's
Ray?
written that you're aware of that really summarizes the points you just made that we can use?
I'll see if I can find an editorial for you from some people that are some of the lawyers that know more about the specific details than I do.
That would be useful, because I think a lot would
Okay.
be interested. The other thing I just
Right.
want to add, it's not only, I think, Republicans being afraid of what happens to them and their families. What I've heard, they are afraid of being excommunicated from their tribe.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. We'll have you back again next week. Thank you, John. We have Andrea Miller up. We have 60 people with us. Cynthia Papermaster, you wanted to get in a word? And then we'll go to Andrea Miller to talk about her upcoming event on February 27th. And then we're going to go to Julian Assange to talk about with VINNIE DESTFANO, who just came back from London. I also want to welcome Paul Fenn. I haven't seen you for years, Paul. One of the great advocates of solar energy in California. I hope you're going to stick around, because Paul Newman is going to present in the second hour about solar in California. There's a ton going on there. Okay, so Ruth Strauss and FEINERMAN, we'll get to you. Please stay with us. But go ahead, Cynthia, and then we're going to go to Andrea Miller. Thank you so much, Ray. You're always great. Go ahead, Cynthia, please. 3 minutes.
Thanks. I don't know if people can see this tiara I'm wearing.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'm trying to get inside Nancy Pelosi's head. She's pressing charges against me for putting 2 washable paint handprints, red handprints on a garage door. And this is the first time after years and years of Code Pink being at Nancy Pelosi allowed any charges, or she's pressing charges through the district attorney of San Francisco. I'm facing a misdemeanor, and my friend is facing a felony charge for splashing some diluted red tempera paint on a garage door. But what I want to say about Nancy Pelosi is that we are attempting to pink slip her. I don't know if people know what a pink slip is. It's kind of an old-fashioned term. It's a termination notice. It's not firing someone. That's for cause. This is more of laying her off. We're laying Pelosi off. And before you laugh, because you know she is very royal, and she is the queen of San Francisco. She's always depended on Democratic voters to reelect her. She said she wasn't going to run for reelection, and she's running again, which is kind of strange. But anyway, I've been going up there every day because what we're trying to do is pink slip her. She said to Code Pink activists when we asked her to call for a ceasefire, go back to China where your headquarters are. That was her response. If anyone can explain that to me, please talk to me later. And then she said on CNN, on Dana Bash, CNN live TV, that ceasefire is Putin's message. She said it a couple times. And then she said she was going to ask the FBI to investigate these ceasefire activists who are coming to her house. That's me. So she's basically putting a target on me, and I'm afraid for my life, and I can barely sleep. I was on a fast for 20 days for Gaza. I ended my fast on February 11 at her house. And that was when we were pouring this diluted red tempera paint on the street and sidewalk. That's totally legal to do. It's not permanent paint. And nobody bothered us. I'm almost done. The police and the police and the Capitol Police who were up there, no one said that we needed to stop because it's legal to do that. But I got carried away. I was just ending my 20-day fast. I put my hands on the red paint and I put my handprints on her garage door. So she's pressing charges. I'm just totally amazed that Pelosi has the nerve to do that, and that she said the things publicly that she has said. So thank you for listening. I'll be on Flashpoints tonight at around 5:15. Tune in to 94. Tune in to 94.
And there's a message to you in the chat from Bianca. She wants you to contact her, please.
Yeah, I know Bianca. But
Okay, great.
my candidate is Marjorie Michaels, who's a peace activist working with Code Pink, and she's a lawyer and she's very well qualified. I can't campaign for Marjorie because I'm Code Pink, a 501c3, but I like peace, and I hope Nancy Pelosi's finished. I hope she's
Okay.
finished.
Thank you. You rock from Wendy Lederman. You're always
Yeah.
great, Cynthia. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being on with us. Come
I'm
again.
off to Pelosi's now. I'm off to Pelosi's. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. And later we're going to talk with Vinnie, who just came back from London about Julian Assange. In the second hour, we're going to go deep on energy. I just had a major piece published about how Ohio killed wind power in Ohio. There's a lot more to go into with that as well. But we're going to go now to Andrea Miller. Andrea in the Virginia suburbs of DC. Andrea, you are one of the great election organizers. 60 people are waiting to hear about your event coming up on Thursday and all that you're doing. And please.
Hey, Harvey, thank you. I'll make this really, really quick. You're going to get 2 events or 2 items. We are texting the Black voters in the brand new majority minority district, Congressional District 2. There is a primary there. Their congressional primary is there. It's on Super Tuesday. And there are, get ready now, Alabama has 21 candidates running for Congress. There are 13 Democrats and there are 8 Republicans. So we are texting people their exact voting location. Also, since it's a brand new district, many people may not know that they are in the new district. So the other thing, what Harvey really wanted me to come on and talk about is on Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Thursday at 8 p.m., we will be doing an update on what we are doing for the first part of 2024. So I'll be talking about texting Alabama. We are postcarding for the Georgia congressional primary. We've released those addresses. We will also be postcarding for the Virginia congressional elections. We released those addresses on March 1st. So there is a ton, and I mean a ton of things that you can do. If you want to text with us, you've never used this texting program before, it's new. So sign up. Don't try to sign in. There's a tiny little sign up link down at the bottom. Sign up first. We will see you. We will then put you in the texting program. So we are looking at this going, are we going to standardize on this, or are we looking for, because we always have to have the latest and the greatest, the item that works the best. We're evaluating this program, so we'd love to have people join us for the evaluation. Thank you, Harvey.
Well, thank you. We got your link in the invite, and it should go in the chat if it can, please. Wendy Lederman has included you in our resource section. We'll be finalizing that on Thursday if you can join us at 2. But Ruth Strauss and LYNN FEINERMAN, do you have a minute to take some, Ruth and then Lynn? Do you want to have?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead. You want to speak with Andrea Miller? Go ahead. Ruth Strauss, you're unmuted, I hope, and I'll get LYNN FEINERMAN unmuted. Go ahead, Ruth.
This was actually for Ray, although I'll encourage everybody to work with Andrea because she's great and they do a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ruth.
Very important one and easy. Even I can do it than anybody can. But for Ray, I had heard that of course Fani is unbelievable, and I would never want to go up against her. I mean, she's really fast on her feet. But I had heard that maybe not that she should actually give up the case, but step aside and let other people in her office take over, only because if they disqualify her and she hasn't stepped aside and let other people in her office continue the case, that the whole case might go away. And if Ray, if you
Yeah, just real quick on that point, the way that the law works here, if she has to recuse, then her office is recused because they operate as her agents. So if she is recused, it would go to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council for the state of Georgia, run by a guy by the name of Pete Skandalakis. The reason that we know this is the case is because Burt Jones, somebody mentioned this in the chat, Burt Jones was then Senator, State Senator Burt Jones, was under investigation as a part of this election interference case. Fani Willis participated in a fundraiser against his opponent for lieutenant governor. The judge then forced her to recuse, which meant that it couldn't be handled by somebody else in her office. It had to be removed from her office. In that case, nobody has been named to be a DA to pursue the evidence against Burt Jones in 18 months. So that deals with both issues. Number one, that it couldn't just be in her office, and number two, that if once it gets in Skandalakis' hands, it's going to die.
Wow, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. You got to remember that Ruth grew up in Mobile, Alabama, so she knows her stuff when it comes to Southern politics. LYNN FEINERMAN, guest host of a great radio show. It's getting you unmuted here. Go ahead, Lynn. LYNN FEINERMAN.
Oh yeah, I am unmuted. Two short things. I just want to say that let's look at this realistically, folks. We had Clinton and we had every other corrupt women involved up to their eyeballs, males. And now we're with Trump, okay, who's got, God only knows how many women he's violated, etc. We're not talking an equal playing field with regard to morality here. And for Fani Willis to be persecuted is just for it to become ever so much more clear that there's a double standard when it comes to women. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I just want to say, yes, anybody who wants to work with Andrea, do work with Andrea, because she really does make organizing easy and it's fun when you're working with her. That's all.
Great. Okay, so thank you for that, Lynn. I'll put the links to your radio show in the chat, please. And we do have ways to contact Andrea and Ray, and just keep up the great work. Is there anything you got an upcoming Zoom on Thursday night? Ray, Andrea, either one of you, do you have places where people can send support and do good work here for you?
Oh, I've already dropped my links in the chat. I will drop the texting invitation in again, texting invite to sign up. We're texting Mobile and Montgomery, Alabama. Alabama's a long word.
Yeah.
All right. So those links will be going in literally just a moment.
Well, we have with us a woman who's doing similar work, grassroots organizing in Florida, Anna Anselmo. Anna, can you unmute? Wendy Lederman brought you in with us. Can you tell us all? Hello?
I'm sorry, Harvey. She had to jump off. Anna had to go. She's actually hosting a postcarding party right now, and so she was Zooming. I know. I was really excited to introduce you, and she's gonna come back next week. But yeah, she works with Bring It Home Florida, and Anna's, she like, just really quickly to let you guys know to fill it in. She works closely with Carolina and I. She's on the board of the Progressive Caucus, but she's somebody whose work, like, I'd been following her. We were aware of each other, and like, I'd just been, you know, she's been such a great leader throughout the state in different organizing campaigns. And right now, Bring It Home Florida, they go door-to-door canvassing. They ask questions to voters about what their concerns are. They register people, postcarding the phone banking. So she's actually hosting a phone banking, I'm sorry, a postcarding party at a coffee shop right now that she apologized profusely that she literally just had to run off for. But I told her I wanted to introduce you to Andrea, or introduce you both, and Ray as well. So we'll continue that and bring her into the family. And I apologize. She apologizes.
No, it's okay. So what maybe we should do is join Andrea on her Zoom Thursday night and exchange contacts, Wendy, and we'll get the postcarding going in Florida if they still have a postal service. You know, I gotta say, why Louis DeJoy is still running the U.S. Postal Service is beyond me. I mean, this is just outrageous. Biden's been asleep at the switch on that one for 4 years. But anyway, we won't go there right now. We will later, though. But Wendy and you've been in touch with Andrea, and so please put her in touch with Anna, and we will connect everybody next week. Okay. Okay, Ray and Andrea, thank you. Always phenomenal. We are so honored to have you both with us. We'll
Love you guys.
Take care. No nukes, and Ray too, and we will move on. But boy, it's always very powerful to have you both on with us. We're going to go now to VINNIE DeStFano. VINNIE just came back from London, was in the major, I don't know, leadership or stardom or whatever at the rally or rallies for Julian Assange. We had thought we were going to have a decision from the court by today. That hasn't happened. I'm sitting on a piece I don't want to put out yet comparing Assange to Navalny. Let's just hope Assange stays alive, unlike Alexei Navalny. But VINNIE, give us a report from London and from the what's going on with Julian Assange, please.
I'll be happy to. First and foremost, this hearing was a hearing for the hearing. And what that means is the Julian's defense has put together a 150-point rebuttal to the extradition. And the hearing was to look at the merits of that. And of course, the decision that will come down, we believe the decision will be sometime in March, will be either denied, and then they go to the European Court of Human Rights, or will be approved. And there's a very good likelihood that it'll be approved for two reasons. One of them good and one of them bad. This was probably the best hearing that Julian got. Now, although I was outside doing interviews during the entire case, both days, one day in the cold and the other day in the rain. Kevin Gustala, who was here earlier, and if you folks are not familiar with Kevin Gustala, familiarize yourself with him, because this is one of the smartest guys to come down the pike. He has a thing called The Dissenter, where he broadcasts regularly, and he covered the trial and has written an incredible book called Guilty of Journalism, The Political Case Against Julian Assange, which is, although a small book, is jam-packed full of incredible information, including the last chapter, which is 30 things you wouldn't know if you hadn't, WikiLeaks didn't exist. However, to go back to the hearing. So the judges, the two-judge panel that were hearing the case for the defense, listened very carefully and asked very good questions. The prosecution, which the American lawyers basically came back with the same crap they had before. I hope crap will follow, will pass on the Pacifica Network, but it really was.
That's a six-letter word. It's spelled CRAPPE, so you're okay.
Yes, crepe. The issue at hand here was they really didn't bring anything new up. They repeated old canards which are untrue. The fact that Julian is not a journalist. Well, he's won 27 journalism awards, and he belongs to about 14 journalistic magazines, and the question of whether he's a journalist or not has been answered a long time ago. But to get to the nub of the matter, what we've got here is they will probably come up with a decision saying, you know what? The appeal against extradition go forward, because that buys them time. The last thing the Biden administration wants, the last thing the British courts wants, is to have Julian back in the Eastern District Court of Virginia during an election year. A recent case where lawyers for Assange were spied on by the CIA is going through in Spain. Deborah Hebrick, Margaret Kunstler, and two other individuals have sued the CIA, and a judge in New York found for them, which means discovery will go forward in their case. The discovery in their case, with their phones, their laptops, all of their belongings, and their attorney-client privilege conversations were all taped, could throw the case out of court. And it's going to follow through their case in Spain, where it's being heard. But the discovery for that case will provide a wealth of data for Julian's defense. And so they don't want that to go through. So what I think, and smart money is betting, that all they're going to do is kick the can further down the road. And that means Julian stays in Belmarsh prison. For those of you unfamiliar with Belmarsh, it is the British equivalent to Guantanamo. It's some of the harshest conditions on the planet. And Julian, I spoke to Stella about this when I was there. He is very sick. I mean, he is very sick. His cell that he's in, where in some days he's in there for 23 hours out of the day, is so cold he's shoving books in the window to keep himself warm. And he was so ill, not only could he not show up at the courtroom where the case was taking place, but he couldn't even listen back in prison on the webcast. So I believe what the Biden administration is hoping they will do, Julian will simply drop dead and that'll be the end of the case. So we can't let that happen. He needs to get out. I will tell you that there were 1,000 people outside the courtroom making a lot of noise. And that was the first day. And the second day was raining. There may have been a few less, but not by much, which means there's a great deal. And on top of that, there was press from around the world there. Now, the BBC was there, and they did say that there were dozens of people outside the courthouse, something that boggles the mind when you think about it. But if you see the video, and there's lots of it, you can see how many people were there from the beginning of the case at 8 o'clock in the morning till the end of the case at 4:30. The last day of the case, we marched side by side, all 1,000 of us, from the Royal Court of Justice on Fleet Street, about a mile and a half away, to 10 Downing Street, where we spoke directly to the folks inside 10 Downing Street where the Prime Minister lives. And I was the last speaker there, and I basically used the words of Joe Biden on World Press Freedom Day, saying essentially, journalism is not a crime. And I asked him, if you say that, why is a journalist in prison being prosecuted for telling the truth? And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We are waiting to hear what will happen, but it is going to be more of the waiting game while Julian slowly but surely dies in Belmarsh prison.
Now, you told me the government of Australia has asked for Julian to be sent there. Is that correct?
That is true.
Has the government of Australia formally requested?
They formally requested not only that, but it's important to note that 70 parliamentarians, and they're just like we are here in America. They hate each other. They agree on nothing. They've got the same kind of loony divides that we have in here, our own Congress, but they came together and their message is enough is enough. Julian is not a US citizen. He is a journalist and he should be returned to his country of origin. Chelsea Manning, who did break the law, much to her eternal credit, by revealing the data that she had, she served 6 years. Julian is about to serve more time than she has, and he's been convicted of nothing. So what the Australian parliamentarians are saying is enough is enough. Release this man, release him back to his family. and drop this case because it is an existential threat against investigative journalism we know it around the world.
Do you see, I'll go to Wendy Lederman in a minute. Do you see any parallels between what's being done? Well, you mentioned it, what's being done to Julian in conjunction, in light of what Putin did to
with Viktor
Navalny.
Navalny. There are a couple of things. We're not certain exactly what happened to Viktor Navalny, other than he was in prison in the Arctic Circle. When you think about in a gulag, a Russian gulag up near the Arctic Circle, it's a very dangerous place. Prisons are very, very tough there. How he died is open to a question. And since they did not cremate his body, they can do an autopsy and find out what the cause of death was. It could be any number of things. Putin could have had him killed. But the fact that Putin is up to his eyeballs in the Ukrainian conflict right now, it's probably the last thing he would do. Say what you want about Putin. He's not stupid. He's not Joe Biden. He's not Donald Trump. He's a very crafty fellow. And so the likelihood that he would kill Navalny at a time when he can least afford that kind of bad publicity leaves it open to a question to exactly what happened to him. But Navalny, who was 47 years old, did die, and he died very quickly. Now, Stella, because her husband is suffering the same kind of fate as Navalny has, spoke very eloquently to the family, and she shared her condolences. But above and beyond that, we really don't know what happened to Navalny, except that he was thrown in prison on spurious charges and that he is now deceased.
Okay, Wendy Lederman, anybody else want to jump in on this? Now's the time. Wendy, go ahead. And then we're going to go to Susan Pinchon in Florida, who is going to be conducting a seminar tonight in a few hours about, so Susan, I hope you can stick with us. Wendy also has the detail, but go ahead, Wendy, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like the words are just bursting out of my mouth more than I can even put them together. I was watching the live stream, the 2-day live stream.
You want to kill you should kill your
Assange's YouTube page.
Wendy, kill your, there you go. Okay.
Thank you. I hope that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suggest everybody go to Stella Assange's YouTube channel and subscribe so you can follow for updates and watch the live stream and clips from the live stream that Vinnie was at. And I really just want to, I have two things to say. One, I just want to tell everybody like how understated Vinnie's capabilities of organizing and just how phenomenal that whole event was. And just, I mean, impressed is, there's no word in the English language for how blown away I was on how fabulous Vinnie did. And the speeches that were given, the one that Vinnie gave, the man on the street interviews with people. I mean, I haven't seen this much energy for Assange like ever. And it's because of the seeds that have been planted this whole year, these past years. And I just have so much love for Assange Defense and Stella. One thing, yeah, back at you, brother. Big time. So the one thing I learned about the case that I didn't know, so apparently the extradition treaty between the UK and the United States, they can't extradite someone who's being charged for political reasons, in the sense that that government might torture or kill them. And so right now is the first time on record within the court, it was known but not on record with the court, that the US had a kidnapping plot to murder him. And beyond just the spying, like Mike Pompeo is outright proven that he wants to kill Julian Assange, and that's the plan. So now this US court is on global public scrutiny for their own jurisdiction on what they actually have the power to do, and it's not within their bounds of the law to extradite a political prisoner. So I wanted to put that out there. There's quite a few revelations that just bursting over, but this seems to be, as long as Julian can feel our strength and our love and hold through and stick with this, because we have a chance. Thanks so much, Vinnie. You guys are just
well said, Wendy. Well said.
Susan Pinchon, I want to make sure we have Lynn Feinerman and TATANKA, but I want to make sure, Susan, you can stick with us. You've got some specific things to tell us. Susan Pinchon, I just texted you. I don't know if you're unmuted. All right, we'll go to Lynn Feinerman, then we'll come back. Susan, raise your hand if you would, and we'll get
Yes,
you into the...
sorry, Harvey, it took a minute for me to unmute. Would you like
Can
me
you
to just
stick-
quickly?
Yeah, go ahead, please, and then we'll go to Lynn and TATANKA. Thank you,
Okay,
Vinnie,
I'll
for
make this.
sticking with us.
Yes, thank you all. That was great, Vinnie and Wendy. Thank you. So I just want you all to know there's an amazing presentation tonight at 7 p.m. If you go to sunrisecenter.org, you'll see the event for tonight. And this is John Brickca and Audit USA, and I'm part of Audit USA, have come up with an amazing program to verify the results of an election. And I'm going to make this really quick, but if you picture every ballot, so picture your ballot, you fill out your ballot, and it ends up in something called a cast vote record, and your ballot is one row in this big spreadsheet. All the votes, but you're not identified, it's completely anonymous. And that's how the voting machine interpreted the marks on your ballot. But voting machines make mistakes all the time. So what Audit USA has done with the help of a brilliant programmer, she's staying anonymous for right now, but we're going to have a big ceremony for her eventually. When you look at the row on the ballot, and again, you don't know which is yours, but any row, it's linked, hyperlinked now to the picture of the ballot itself. So you can look and see how how the voter filled out their marks and compare it immediately to how the voting machine interpreted those marks. So you'll be able to take your whole county or just a precinct, and in the comfort of your own home, you'll be able to check the results of your election. And we're hopeful, with all the problems that elections have, and you've all been through, listed a lot of them tonight already, but one of the big problems, of course, is that people don't believe the results. So we're very hopeful that when people can actually take the results and then look across and see that the ballot that goes with the way the voting machine interpreted that ballot is the same, that they will start to have more confidence in election results.
So we're dealing here with the great John Brickca and Ken Bennett and Ray Lutz from
Benny Smith.
who really turned the election in Arizona in 2020. And this is very important technology. The links are in the chat, I hope. Susan is one of the great organizers here. Your session tonight starts at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Strongly recommend.
Wendy, since I'm in my car, Wendy, I know Wendy has the link for the meeting. Wendy, could you please post that link? And actually, the person who's going to be, John's giving an introduction, John Brickca, and then Benny Smith, who is a great activist, and he's now on the State Board of Elections for Tennessee, and we're expecting him to do great things in that state. But he's actually going to be presenting this new program. So we hope you might tune in. It's actually, we're very excited. This is a groundbreaking audit tool that each of us can use. And
good.
Well,
we hope also you'll announce the availability of the position for running the Pacifica election. If you'd be in touch with Myla Reeson about that, that would be really good. That's certainly a good audience for that. We want to thank Lori Greaves for sponsoring this, and Wendy did some of the legwork on setting it up. So tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. There's some very important webcast. And Susan Pinchon, you've been with us for a long time from Florida. Thank you so much for the
Thank you, Harvey.
Okay.
Thank you, Harvey. Thank you all. All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. And keep in touch and keep active. We really appreciate it. And of course, Wendy, you'll put them in touch with Andrea Miller and all the work that's going on with her as well. Okay. Thank you for that. It's 3 o'clock in California time. It's actually raining again. Unbelievable. And we do have Paul Fenn and Paul Newman waiting in the wings to talk about solar in California. And then we want to start to go through our election protection document. I do have a piece out. I want to talk about a truth out about Ohio. Next week, we got to do a deep dive in Ohio. What's going on in Ohio just defies description. It's just unbelievable. It's like a one Thomas Nast cartoon that never stops. Paul Fenn, I hope you can stick with us for a while. And Paul Newman to jump in. Very good. Okay, Lynn FEINERMAN, you had the next shot to talk about Julian and then TATANKA. Lynn FEINERMAN, are you unmuted? Yes. Hello?
Yeah, I'm unmuted and I'm showing you a postcard, folks. You can send postcards, okay, to about HRES 934, okay, and what the resolution is it expresses the sense of the House of Representatives that regular journalistic activities are protected under the First Amendment, and that the United States ought to drop all charges against and attempts to extradite Julian Assange. This is being sent to every member of the House of Representatives. You can talk with Vinnie about it, Vincent DeStefano. Please put your email address in there. And you can also talk with Ann Batiza. Vinnie can...
I can put them both in there, Lynn, and thank you very much for that. I'm going to put mine and Ann's.
Yeah, and each of these will get to every single member of the House. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. Great to hear that. Thank you, Lynn, for doing that. TATANKA, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I was going to basically tout that and ask Vinnie if there's anything else. I assume everybody on this call has probably already been to the Assange Defense website, but is there anything else that we could be doing while hopefully to help Julian get out?
In addition to the postcards, that is incredibly important. And we have a plan where we send you 435 of those postcards. If you make your decision for Christ to really send them out, we provide the postage, the addresses for all of the congressmen, and then you simply put your return address and a small sentence and your signature and send them off. We want to have 50 of these on there. Now, for those of you that can't do that, can't take and gather enough people to do that, call your congressman and ask them to drop this case. Each and every one of your congressmen and senators, when they took office, swore an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. And this is the greatest assault on the First Amendment that we have experienced in our lifetimes. If Julian is prosecuted, that's it. Game over. What the Obama administration referred to as the New York Times problem. Any reporter could be prosecuted in the same manner for publishing the truth. Publishing the truth. So that is what I would say. Thank you for that shout out to TATANKA very, very much.
Yeah, thank you, Vinnie. Good to see your face, and thanks for all your work.
Really, Vinnie just celebrated his 110th anniversary yesterday. So congratulations on that, Vinnie.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, and then go ahead, Wendy, and then we're going to move on to solar in California.
Thank you. I was actually just trying to get the screen on so I could show everybody this postcard for House Resolution 934. There's a little script here on back that's already printed, but maybe it's a helpful guide for anyone that's just willing to send an email or call. And again, these are going out to all the representatives. They all need to know about. You can even send a thank you to the ones that already did sign on, but just important to just keep Julian in your voices. Support House Res 934, free Assange, free us all, free press. Love you guys. Thank you.
All right,
and there are two emails in there, mine and Ann Batiza. That's Ann at Wisconsin. She's a PhD instructor at the Madison. She's very, very smart, much smarter than I am. This is the case with just about everybody on this call.
Okay, thank you, Vinnie. Well, since you've said that, I'm not going to say disagree. I'm going to offer a alternative vision. I believe in my heart of hearts that Putin really did kill Navalny. I think he came to the conclusion that Navalny was more of a problem alive than dead, and that would be his thinking anyway. Putin doesn't care, as we all know. But in Biden's case, I think it would be a really, really serious blow to him if Julian should pass away. People are not going to forgive that, and it's all over the world. And if I was Joe Biden, which I'm not, thankfully, because he's older than I am. I would do everything in my power to keep Julian Assange alive and get him back to Australia as quick as possible. I think that's the political calculus, and I think we should operate with that assumption. It could be wrong, but I don't think Joe Biden, unlike Putin, who clearly wanted Navalny dead in my world, I think one of the worst things that could happen to Biden right now is that Julian should pass on. And I think we should operate on that assumption and just press as hard as possible to get him back to Australia as fast as possible. That's
from your lips to dog's ears.
There
Harvey,
you go.
From your lips to dog's ears.
Okay. Well, whenever I talk to a dog, they go to a tree, but we'll leave that alone. Okay. So thank you. And thank you, Vinnie, for your firsthand reporting.
Thank
Vinnie,
you for the opportunity, Harvey.
Walking arm in arm with Stella. And, you know, if I ever met her, I'd want to do the Marlon Brando thing and go, Stella. But that's a whole other complication. Those of you who haven't seen A Streetcar Named Desire, you've just dated yourself. Okay, we're going to go now to Paul Newman and Paul Fenn. We are after the hour. We are on the Progressive Radio Network, hopefully. And thanks, Steve Caruso, for keeping us up on the web. Mike Hirsch, good to have you with us. Wendy and so many other great people. 47 of you got the people on these calls have the longest attention span of anybody in America. And there's some really great people. I want to say hi to John Steiner. Great to have you. I think Camilla is on with us, and so many others. But let's go to Paul Newman and then Paul Fenn. Paul Newman, I have briefly been in both the solar panel industry and the wind industry. I made no sales in the wind industry because I was operating in Ohio where they killed wind power. And I will talk about that later. But I facilitated the sales of a solar rooftop array to Paul Newman and Tom Camarello. And I talked to Tom today. He's actually pretty happy with his unit. And Paul, you've been very, very supportive. Tell us about your experience putting solar panels on the roof in Southern California. And then we're going to go to Paul Penn for an even bigger picture. But go ahead, Paul Newman, please.
All right. Well, hello from this rainy day in Santa Monica. But it was a great experience. First, these engineers come over with a drone, and they cruise my roof, and then with a camera and everything, and take measurements. I have a tile roof, so they had to take off the tile. It was pretty smooth. It was a smooth operation. It was with LA Solar, and they explained what was going on and everything. They kept me informed. It was very transparent. They took all the tile off of my Spanish Mediterranean style house and replaced the tar paper with another type of tar paper, which is special for when you put solar panels on the roof. So like about a week and a half to 2 weeks later, they had the guys come and take my tiles off and store them in the back of my backyard near the alley. And they took off my tar, put on fresh tar paper, and drilled specific holes that required for the electrical. And they put 18 Panasonic panels on the top of my roof, and hooked them all up. And within about 3 weeks, because it had to go through an inspection, because Santa Monica has very strict building inspection. Within 3 weeks to 4 weeks, I had solar panels on my roof. It was generating a lot of electricity. It was about 16 panels. And it is 16 panels. I have an app on my phone which monitors how much I produce. The electricity that I produced in the daytime, the excess would go to Southern California Edison. And at night, I would buy my electricity from Southern Cal. It dropped my bill from $300 a month down to like $395 a year. And wow. I know. So
that's amazing.
It's basically paying $35. Now, there was a program in the city of Santa Monica which buys my electricity instead of SCE, or Southern California Edison. They bought my electricity. So but they used Southern California as an agent, for me to pay my annual bill. It was just one bill. And this was done in 2019. After that, after coming to Solartopia and to your Zoom town halls, I learned about net metering. So twice I called the California PUC, and everybody on there I was on the line for 4 hours. And then I got to speak, and against net metering, everybody, not one person. And some of the people were rooftop solar engineers or people that had companies, and other people were were happy with the rooftop solar. They were complaining they don't want net metering. And the PUC did not listen to anybody twice. I mean, what's the purpose? Why do it? I couldn't believe it, and
Right.
it's just another form of corruption, and plutocracy or kleptocracy, wrong word.
Both. No, they're both.
They're both.
Yeah. It's
And,
both the devil and the thievery.
Right. And so I've been very satisfied with it. It took a big worry off me. I am a heart patient anyway, and by being a heart patient, I don't need the stress, of lots of bills. But now the gas company's raising their prices. So
Well, then get rid of your gas,
I know.
you can do a heat pump, and you can do electric, solar electric, actually just flat out solar thermal hot water heating is very, very cost effective. Do you have a battery or an electric car?
Yeah, I have an electric car. It's a Prius plug-in. It's a 2015. I'd love to get a Tesla, but they're like 43,000, and I don't have that kind of money.
Well, I just read, this is probably relevant to you. I read within the last week that a lot of people have stopped buying Teslas because they hate Elon Musk because he's such a jerk. So you may want to take that into account. Not that Ford was any better, but nonetheless, well, so Paul Newman, you're a happy customer.
I'm a happy
and,
customer.
You put him in 5 years ago, is that right?
In 2019 of August, they completed the project. And I have a pool too with pool pumps, which really eat a lot of electricity. And even with pool pumps, no problem.
Do you heat your pool with the electricity?
I have solar hot water on my garage roof.
Oh, okay.
So it pumps hot water into the pool. And in the summertime till October, my pool temperature varies from 80 to 90 degrees just from solar heating.
And where does it go in January during our frigid California winters here?
It turns into the famous Swedish ice dip. But it's real invigorating.
Yeah.
Well, I used to surf and go in the water where it's cold anyway with a wetsuit. And
well, that's probably why you're a heart patient. But anyway,
Yeah.
Paul, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I want to go to Paul Fenn, who's been in this advocacy here in California, advocacy in the middle of a travesty, where we have the governor, the so-called green governor, killing rooftop solar, putting 17,000 people out of jail, out of work so far. We would prefer they come out of jail, out of work, and really devastating the rooftop solar, which has been so successful with people like Paul. Paul Fenn, what can you tell us about what's going on here in California?
Well, Harvey, it's good to see you. Thanks for slipping me in. I'm just watching it for so many years. I have to say, I think it's really always has been a kleptocracy, and the irony is kind of overwhelmed, right? And when Jerry Brown became governor, I expected improvements on the previous administrations, and his commissioners were even worse. And now with Gavin Newsom, it's just sort of off the rails. And not only with the attack on solar net metering, but also obviously with keeping Diablo open, right? When that was basically a done deal to close it,
right?
And so kind of a lot of reversals there, which I think were even unthinkable under previous Republican administrations. It's just the utilities are getting their way in every way now, and the the systems have kind of broken down, I guess is my take on that. Like there's no longer any real democratic pressure inside those institutions. I also think that with net metering was originally was created as essentially as a startup mechanism to stimulate the solar market back in 1990s, 1995. It's a very old policy.
Oh no, net metering came in the 70s and 80s of the previous century. It's been the idea of net metering, for those who don't know, is that if you have a windmill or solar panels on your home or your farm, and you feed your excess power into the grid, they have to pay you for it.
Yeah.
But they never pay you what you have to pay them.
Right.
In other words, if they sell you 100 kilowatt hours of electricity, they sell it to you at a retail price. If you sell them back 100 kilowatt hours of electricity, they don't pay you, they pay you bupkis, on very, very little. And that's what the PUC has done even worse here in California, right?
Yeah, and many other states now too. So there's a generally attack going on that I don't think can be stopped. Just because those regulatory institutions, electrical structuring, as you know, going back in the 90s, largely failed, results of the energy crisis of around 2000. And after that, there was a sort of a banana Republican re-regulation that occurred, which was not really re-regulation. Instead, it was just essentially unregulated monopoly. And many states did that. They just started to revert to a half-regulated model, and which basically consists of just giving utilities what they want.
Well, we have a situation now, and in California, we're fighting tooth and nail, and there's a whole movement to reverse this, and there are bills in the legislature now, which I'm sure Milo is familiar with, and we're pushing all the legislators we possibly can to get this back on track, because on the one hand, we had a deal, as you mentioned, Paul Finn, in 2016, signed by Jerry Brown and by Gavin Newsom and by the utility and the unions and the regulatory agencies and the local governments and the environmental groups to shut Diablo Canyon right now, this year. And everybody was on board. And then all of a sudden, Newsom comes out of the blue, no hearings, no public hearings, no fact-finding commissions, and just says, we're going to keep Diablo Canyon open.
Yeah.
It did basically overnight.
Yeah. And now we have this small modular reactor thing going on, which is backed by Bill Gates, and their PR has just blanketed the Democratic Party. So you have a kind of revisionism going on now. I was just at Sam Lovejoy's celebration last week and up in Turner's Falls, and talking to some people there who were saying, what's going on? All the young people think nuclear is cool. The PR has just exploded the memory of the anti-nuclear movement that you started back in the early 70s. And it's incredible the amount of topspin that they have right now inside of the political establishment. There's no resistance left, really.
Well, they do have a problem, which
they don't
have
work.
discussed. The problem is that they don't have there's no there.
Yeah.
The last major atomic reactor, big reactor, built in the United States just went online in Georgia. There are no other large nuclear power plants under construction in the United States. So now they're talking about these small reactors. The small problem is they don't have any.
Yeah.
They don't even have a prototype in the United States. They can't get a prototype probably until 2030. They can't bring them online in any numbers at all, probably till 2040. So we're talking about a giant donut here.
Yeah.
And so they can promote nuclear power all they want. It's a diversion from the need to go to renewables. And as we've seen with Paul here, Newman, they work. They work perfectly well. We're waiting, but I'm going to put them on my house and get an electric car and swim in my pool in January. So, that's the progress, the technological progress of renewable energy is staggering. And I will tell you, we're going to revisit this next week. Anna Georgi is on the line with us, by the way, from Western Mass, who was president she was at the Lovejoy event, I'm sure. You know, the reality is that the progress of renewables is probably as great and successful a technological revolution as any in human history. It's right next to the computer revolution. If you look at the curves, the mathematical curves of cost efficiency and success, financial success of wind, solar, batteries, and efficiency in the world, it's straight up, and the learning curve on the nuclear is straight down, to the point that of the last 4 reactors that were under construction in the United States in the 21st century, the last 4 of this entire technology of big reactors, two in South Carolina at VC Summer totally failed. $9 billion was spent on the 2 reactors at VC Summer in South Carolina, about as much as was spent on the Webb telescope. And they bankrupted Westinghouse, and they will never operate. And the other 2 at Vogtle, the last one being just now opening, units 3 and 4, they were supposed to cost $15 billion. They're coming in at least at $35 billion. And you're seeing this in France at Flamanville and in England at Hinkley. It's astounding. But they're pushing them. This is their last gasp. If we can stop these guys and renew the push for renewables, which is why it's so important here in California to get the solar industry back online, we will kill fossil fuels and nuclear power forever. They will never be able to come back, I don't think. Ron Leonard, who's a godfather, we call him the Don Corleone of solar, helped really start this industry. Ron, what do you got to say about all that? Oh, let's get you unmuted so we can hear what you're saying. There you go.
That would
Go ahead.
work.
Yeah.
So, Harvey, you know, it's $1 million here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're into real money. But the scenario that we have to keep in mind is that the United States has hit mainstream. And by that, I mean we have finally gotten to 35 gigawatts of solar installed last year in 1 year. You know, those numbers are big because the most we really got to was about 22 gigawatts in any 1 year. We have finally reached the tipping point. There is no way backward, and backward is the term that we should be using here, because renewable energy is cleaner, cheaper, faster, and more reliable. And all those winning factors give us a moral reckoning, say, to monopoly utilities, time is up.
Well, it's actually more than moral, and that's the key here. I mean, if you've got $1 billion in your pocket to invest in energy, and you have no morals at all, and you don't care about the planet at all you want is the cheapest energy, you're going to invest it in renewables. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's even more than fair to say that it's a smart move. It's really the only logical move, because really people are seeing that this little commodity that we're talking about, energy, is critical for their life. You know, we're experiencing unusual weather conditions and unusual worldwide conflagrations. And if we don't have a secure home, what are we doing? Why are we spending this money for something that's unreliable? And reliability is what renewable energy does give you. That's something that's really, you can't put a price on it. Although
Right.
the price is
So,
the cheapest.
Bottom line, Paul mentioned that there was an event last Thursday, February 22nd. It was the 50th anniversary of the toppling of a weather tower in protest in the town of Montague, Massachusetts, by Sam
I
Lovejoy,
remember that.
who left our
I was
community
there.
farm around midnight, I believe, and walked through the snow and knocked over this weather tower, not with explosives, by the way. He did it with a crowbar. There's a great description of how he did it. There's a film called Lovejoy's Nuclear War, which was made by Green Mountain Post Films, and he talks about putting the thing and unfastening the guy wires. I mean, I can't even change a car on a tire on a car, but he did it, and it was the 50th anniversary on the 22nd. Anna Georgie, you can see there, was part of the festivities, but there was also, that was in 74. In 75, we also coined the phrase "no nukes" at the farm, and we printed the first T-shirts, and Anna was part of that, and those T-shirts and other stuff, first bumper stickers, are now in the archive at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. But the bottom line is that the following year, in 1975, at UMass, there was something called the Toward Tomorrow Fair. And for a lot of people,
I was
this
there.
is just, you were there. Of course you were. And there's Anna's book, No Nukes.
I was there.
And No Nukes, as you can see, it's a large book and with a smooth cover, and not only has a lot of great content, but you can roll doobies on the cover of the book very easily. That was the best piece of the Whole Earth catalog. It was perfect for rolling joints. But at any rate, in 1975 at UMass, there was a fair organized by a guy at our farm named Fran Coster that featured a focus on renewables. Now, you got to remember, renewables were very, very new at the time. I mean, photovoltaic cells were only and became reality in the early 50s. And we did have wind-generated electricity in the 1880s in Cleveland, by the way, a guy named Charles Brush. But there were two people at this Toward Tomorrow Fair in 1975 in Amherst. And one was a guy named William Hieronymus. And Hieronymus had a vision of an offshore windmill that would generate 5 megawatts of power. And everybody said he was completely crazy. What's that? And he was actually quite a genius. He came from the military. And we now have, this year, China is installing offshore windmills that are 18 megawatts, that are more than 3 times what William Hieronymus' vision. The other major heavy hitter at the Toward Tomorrow Fair has been on our programs. His name is Amory Lovins. He's still with us, thankfully. He's in Snowmass, Colorado. Yeah. And he really introduced the vision of a world that could run totally on renewables. And with guys like Ron Leonard, who were turning it into a physical reality. And don't forget the most important guy. What's that?
I said, don't forget the most important guy was Pete Seeger, who was there.
Oh, yeah, Pete. We didn't have the Solartopia song there yet, but Pete Seeger now has sung the Solartopia song, which introduces our radio show on Wednesdays at KPFK. But the bottom line is that people really didn't know quite what to make of this vision of a green-powered Earth. And here you see the temperatures, but Amory had a very clear vision. In fact, Amory at the Toward Tomorrow Fair was talking about hybrid cars, and nobody talked about hybrid cars. And Amory predicted they would, take over, that you'd have a joint system of a gas-fired car with batteries. And 3 million Priuses later, here we are. So, and I asked Amory on our call, if in 1975 you had predicted exactly where solar would be 50 years later, would people believe you? And he said, absolutely not. The expectations for wind and solar And we weren't talking about batteries back then. We were talking about efficiency, but not batteries. Nobody talked about batteries back then. And Amy said it would not have been credible 50 years ago what's actually happened with wind and solar technologies, that we've blown by all possible predictions. And so here we are. And the bottom line is, as social democrats and anti-war civil rights activists, it was not assumed that we would have the arguments of economy on our side. But the bottom line is it makes no sense to do any kind of new energy generation that is not renewable at this point in time. It's not wind or solar or batteries or geothermal or increased efficiency or whatever else Ron Leonard has got to sell these days. I mean, the bottom line is that, what's that?
The interesting fact is it took us those 40 years worldwide to get 1 terawatt of solar installed. We are going to get the next terawatt installed at present pace in 2 friggin' years. By 2030, it is predicted that we will have 9 terawatts of solar installed, the cheapest, most reliable energy that the world has ever seen.
So 9 terawatts, will that allow us to retire all the nuclear plants?
Easily. The United States only has a usage, peak usage, instantaneous usage of 1 terawatt. So even considering that solar energy has intermittency and or only operates 12 hours a day, no problem.
Well, I can't tell you how many debates I've had with fossil nuclear advocates who suddenly bring up the idea that the sun doesn't shine at night, as if they're about to get the Nobel Prize for this incredible insight. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And do you know who invented the term battery? Who invented the term battery? Does anybody know? It'll date you. It was Benjamin Franklin, for God's sakes. Benjamin Franklin understood battery technology. He died in 1790. For God's sakes, we've had batteries named by an American for what is that, 240 years, 230 years. So, it's all right there. And the other thing is, and Ron is well aware of this, and I want to get to Ohio for a minute when we're dealing with this, but the bottom line is that China now is completely, to coin a phrase, blowing us away. They install more solar every year now than we have in the whole entire United States. Now, they're still fooling around with nuclear power in China. They're still building 20 or 30 atomic reactors. God knows why. Anybody can figure that one out, let me know. But they are so powerfully into solar that they tried to corner the global market a couple of years ago. They thankfully failed, but they came awful close. They did drive Solyndra and a bunch of other people out of business. But the Chinese are installing an incredible amount of solar, as Ron is well aware.
This year, China will have more solar power powering their grid than coal. Think about that.
Well, I think that's true worldwide.
Coal king.
I think that's true in the United States now, actually. And certainly it's true of nuclear.
Absolutely. But I mean, China was the coal reliant entity. The last gasp of coal was China, and that's gone after this year.
And nuclear too. We get more solar in the United States than we do from nuclear. Certainly in California we do. Rooftop, and that's just rooftop. That's just rooftop solar. So the other argument we're getting, and this is irrelevant and actually credible, is that people are saying that these big solar-based, desert-based solar panels, solar farms are not good for the environment. And the bottom line is that we don't even have to go there. I don't know what the square mileage, I'm trying to find the square mileage of available rooftops in the United States for solar panels. And certainly in California and LA, you fly into LAX, you see, mile after mile of flat roofs, which don't have solar panels on them. So I actually advocate, and we run into this with the unions, and it's important to understand this. The unions support solar as long as they're big installations, but the unions have not unionized the rooftop solar industry. And as a result of that, they don't support rooftop solar, a lot of them, which is ridiculous. Now, my argument is that there should be no solar panels installed anywhere except on rooftops until we cover every eligible rooftop in the United States, with one exception. The other place that solar panels should go is on top of aqueducts and reservoirs, because the solar panels actually function better in colder weather. And the aqueducts and the reservoirs, this happened apparently, I don't know if this is a folk tale or not, but I was told that a coal mine in China blew up a few years ago, which happens, as did happen to the battleship Maine, by the way. But and it filled with water and became a lake, and the Chinese covered it with floating solar panels. And the solar panels, there are at least two functions, three. One is that the water cools the panels, so they're more efficient. The panels stop evaporation, which would make a huge difference on the California aqueduct. And you have water right there, because one of the things you have to do is clean solar panels, and it does take water. And so you just, pump it out right where you are. So there's a triple incentive there. And four, actually, you have a clear path for transmission. So they could just run a wire down the bottom of the California aqueduct and pump electricity all the way down. You don't have to build power towers. You just intercept wherever there's transmission. So
I just
go ahead.
Chat the answer to your question. How much solar square footage does it take to power America? And it's a little tiny section. In fact, my friend, Dr. Perez did a study 30 years ago. How much rooftop area would it take to power Con Ed's entire grid? And it really doesn't require much more than the rooftops in Queens, New York. So this is a doable thing. And the advantage that you have there using this bad land application, a rooftop, a carport, a landfill, is that those solar systems are in the load pocket. So you're not moving energy around for hundreds of miles. You're powering clean energy right where it needs to be.
So there you go, folks. We're going to talk about more about this next week. We're going to have because we're still dealing with the nuclear issue, and they're still talking about building nuclear plants, and it's such a sham. Nobody, and that's why I've been challenging. Milo and I have been challenging Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone fulfilled my dream of being in an Oliver Stone movie. He made this pro-nuclear documentary, and he included a clip of me. He never bothered to interview me, and he's just got this clip of me saying that we're trying to make nuclear more expensive. But fine with me, go right ahead. But he now, and TATANKA has a connection to a friend of his, and I have another connection to Oliver Stone. Guy interviewed him and said that this is actually reliable. He interviewed Oliver Stone, and at my urging, told Oliver Stone that I wanted to debate him. And allegedly, the response was that I should debate somebody who knows more about nuclear power. He made this film about nuclear power, for God's sakes. But anyway, so the bottom line is, when you hear people talking about nuclear, there's no there. They can't build new nuclear plants. The last big nuclear plant is done. There are 0 large nuclear power reactors under construction in the United States, and there'll never be another one. And they're talking about these small reactors. They don't have a prototype, for God's sakes. There is one in China, but the American small reactor industry cannot do a prototype before 2029 or 2030 by their own admission. They could never mass produce before probably 2035, more likely 2040. So we're talking about a giant hole here. There's no there. And we have won the economic battle. We've exceeded all expectations with solar. And with the first solar panel, the first successful photovoltaic cell came out of the Bell Labs in the early 1950s. And you can still, I've actually held it in my hand. They carted it around the solar panel at solar shows. Do you know where the second solar panel is? Does anybody know? It went up in space. They really developed it for the space program. It was on the, I think the Voyager or the Vanguard, whatever it was called, in the early 1950s. And very successful use of solar in the space program. So, you know, we've won that battle economically, and they're pushing like crazy to keep us from taking over, because they'll put the utility business out of industry out of business, and they're not going to win. We're going to win this. Mary, very quickly, and then I want to go and talk about Ohio in this conjunction. I have a major piece out at the at Truth out right now about Ohio I want to talk about, and then we do want to talk also about gerrymandering in New York State. This is a big deal. There's an article in the New York Times today about gerrymandering, and Ron Leonard knows all about that in New York. Go ahead, Mary, please.
I just want to point out, we really don't need the rooftops if they would just do our sidewalks and streets, because they've shown that through a motion system that all the streets and sidewalks generate enough power to power a city and everything else.
Well, I just saw, I'm glad you mentioned it. I saw on YouTube, I watched this documentary last night on the most important 20 technological breakthroughs that are going on now. And one of them, as Mary mentions, is they're turning sidewalks and eventually streets into energy generators, where you know, people walking on streets, you know, it's set up with a kind of a bouncy system where if you walk down the street, you can power a light bulb. And
and they're doing it. Some people are thinking about incorporating it with bridges, because bridges sway.
Oh,
so they're always conducting their own energy.
Yes, that's right. I did see another thing. I was floored by this. If you go to YouTube and look up a little thing on the 20 most important new technological breakthroughs, this one really blew me away. They are
it's actually been around. It's been around for about 6 years.
Yes, it's
only
been in Holland.
A few cities have incorporated it, but they're usually new cities in foreign countries.
Well, they've been doing it in Holland for a while. The one that blew away, and I couldn't make this up, they are incorporating into concrete bacteria that will heal the concrete as it cracks. I mean, this was mind-boggling, but they are doing this. They're putting living bacteria into the mix of the concrete, and when they build the buildings, the bacteria somehow stays alive, and when it cracks, it fills in the cracks. I couldn't make that up, and there it was. So go to YouTube and the most recent important 20 inventions. We're going to talk more about renewables, and if you ever want to jump in on any of this, please do. Anybody's working in this field, but nobody knows more about it than Ron Leonard. And we're really grateful to have Ron Leonard on. I do want to mention one other thing very important that Ron knows about in New York. I don't know if Julie Weiner has joined us, but there's a front page article in the New York Times today about a dilemma that the Democrats are facing in New York about gerrymandering. Now, last week we talked about gerrymandering in Wisconsin, and the takeover, which we were involved in, of the Wisconsin Supreme Court by a liberal has tipped the balance in the Wisconsin. They're nonpartisan technically in Wisconsin, but because they have a 4-3 majority now, they have ordered and successfully the ungerrymandering, unrigging of Wisconsin. So they will actually have something close to fair districts for the state legislature in Wisconsin. And the governor of Wisconsin is now asking that they do that for the congressional districts, the U.S. congressional. But in New York now, New York got gerrymandered for the last election. It's ridiculous. And the Democrats have gone on it, and there has been a court-ordered redrawing of the maps in New York. And the court-ordered maps are actually somewhat fair. But the Democrats in the state legislature have the opportunity, or they think they have the opportunity, to really rig the districts in New York for the Democrats. And they're facing the dilemma, and Ron, tell me if I've got this correctly characterized, of whether they should go for really, really gerrymandered districts in New York that would favor the Democrats, as opposed to the reasonably fair districts they're looking at. Can you give us any insight on that, Ron, as a New Yorker?
A New Yorker?
Yeah.
So first I have to correct your horrible mistake, which is that solar energy, photovoltaics, were invented in New York in 1873. It's in the chat right now. And the first installation was done in Manhattan. So New York is everything. But New York is also a problematic everything, because a guy that I know, a congressman who was working with Nancy Pelosi, decided that we could, in New York, gerrymander the election districts in such a way that it would favor probably Democrats, and you could break Staten Island into 4 districts, and it was a step too far. And because of that, everybody sort of realized that, and they had a judge appointed, and the judge had a special person to go out there and refix the boundaries of these election districts. And what occurred in the last election is that we lost a bunch of congressional seats in New York State. New York State, I thought was, this blue state, it was Democrat, but we lost 2 Republican people because what we had is Democrats running against Democrats in Congress for the same seat. It was nuts. We just shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. And now we're back at it. So the question is, we were supposed to decide this Sunday, yesterday, whether the fixed gerrymandered seats were going to be accepted, or whether we're going to start all over again and see if we're going to gerrymander some more fun things in New York State. It's not really the best thing to be doing with our time.
So the gist of the article was that if the Democrats do a two partisan, come up with maps that are too partisan, the court will throw them out, and then they'll wind up with even worse situation, as opposed to if they actually are fair. Who could imagine that? That the new districts will stay in place. Is that a fair characterization?
And the same guy who sued the last time is saying he will sue again this time if this goes too far a guy.
Well, interestingly, they had the same choice in Wisconsin, where they could have gone further than the governor went and got more districts that favored the Democrats more, and they decided they backed off. They didn't do that, and so they're thinking that the districts in Wisconsin for the legislature are fairly even, and they've been put into law. So maybe we should suggest that the New Yorkers and of course we know, by the way, Ron, you're dead wrong that California is actually everything, not New York.
Yeah, I know.
But if they actually behave with a civil tone, they may actually have the districts hold in New York that will, it occurred to me reading this, why don't you guys just go out and win the election? I mean, what a concept, right?
That's really the key, because the guy, Sean, the congressman who actually did this rejigging of the districts, lost his seat that time.
Right.
So
okay.
It's not the right thing to do.
All right. So this brings us to Ohio. And my piece at Truth Out in Ohio basically runs through what's going on in the state, which defies description. You have a legislature in Ohio that is so badly gerrymandered and so far out of control that they overrode the veto of a conservative Republican governor who did not want to absolutely kill trans people. And you know, the details are a little fuzzier than that, but the bottom line is that Mike DeWine, who's an extreme right-winger, thought that the anti-trans bill that came out of the gerrymandered legislature was too extreme. And he vetoed it to allow medical treatment for you know, people who are trans. And that was not good enough for the right-wing legislature where Steve is to, you know, to sit. But they overrode his veto. Now, in Ohio, in terms of gerrymandering, I'm going to get to energy in a minute. And you should all remember that I grew up in Columbus, for God's sakes, and I committed what amounts to treason in Columbus, which is that I went to the University of Michigan. My family doctor, when I told him I was going to go to Ann Arbor, basically threw me out of his office. He had been treating me since I was a kid. And when I told him I was going to the U of M, he started screaming at me and refused to treat me anymore. God. Anyway, the gerrymandering in Ohio has been overridden by two statewide referenda. And the vote against gerrymandering, the popular vote against gerrymandering in Ohio, the last time was 75%. And we have 5 Supreme Court decisions from the state Supreme Court, which is controlled by the Republicans, demanding fair districts in Ohio. And the legislature in Ohio has managed to probably RF, I'll use the term RF, the new districts, even beyond the upcoming 24 election, where we will probably get, in a state that's about 54-46 Republican now versus Democrat, we will get 2/3 to 3/4 of the legislature after 24 that is going to be gerrymandered for the Republicans. Steve, is that accurate? I mean, that's pretty much where we stand now, right? I got to mute you. Anyway.
Yeah. From what I looked at the 2021 statistics, registered voters in Ohio were majority Democrat. But I saw in your article, I don't know if that's changed or you found a better source, but
well, the sources are all over the map. I will admit to you, by the way, there's a mistake in my article. I point out that no Republican has ever won the presidency without winning Ohio, and that is true. But then I compliment Ohio for putting such liberals as Franklin Roosevelt, John Kennedy, and Barack Obama in the White House. But in fact, John Kennedy did not carry Ohio in 1960. And I was misspoken because I was 14 years old in 1960 in high school in Columbus, and I saw John Kennedy at the State House. I was about 50 yards from him. And he looked like this. He looked like the Messiah, actually. He was bathed in white light. But nonetheless, the gerrymandering situation in Ohio is devastating, and it will have an impact because the congressional Democrat delegation from Ohio is also 2/3 Republican. And these guys have pulled every dirty trick in the book to keep Ohio gerrymandered. It's appalling. And there's a lot of other really bad stuff coming out of Ohio. So you may want to read my Truth Out article. It's very depressing. But when it comes to energy, and this is really a killer, is that Ohio, amazingly enough, is one of the states in the country that is superb for wind power. Now, the number one state for electric generation in the United States is Texas, by far. The windmills are all in West Texas, very far from the cities.
On a Zoom meeting, I put myself on mute and I covered my video.
Okay. is anybody waiting that I didn't call on, by the way?
Oh,
Because
Carol
I wanna
has
deal
the
with it.
form. She can either email it to you if you.
Oh, okay, that was TATANKA. So the bottom line is this. I actually went door to door in northern Ohio trying to sell windmills. And every farmer, I talked about a dozen farmers in their houses. Every farmer wanted to put wind power on their farms. It's a no-brainer. You don't have to put a cent down. You you put up somebody comes in, they dig a hole, they put up a windmill, it kills one bird a year, takes up no space. This idea that wind farms, if anybody ever tells you that wind farms take up a lot of space, you know immediately that they're full of it. It's not true. The average footprint for even the biggest onshore windmills are an acre or less. So if you put 1,000 windmills on a 100,000 acre farm, you lose 1,000 acres. That's it, if that. And they do. You have to have a road to the windmills, but they require so little maintenance that in many farms they don't even build a road. They just figure if something goes wrong, we'll drive over the crops on this narrow piece of land, and that's it. So the wind in northern Ohio is sufficient to power most of northern Ohio, including Cleveland, Toledo, Ashtabula, and you go around the lake to Detroit or the other side to Erie and Buffalo. The wind coming off the lake is very powerful. And the magic of wind power in Ohio is that you have transmission lines everywhere. The big problem with wind in Texas and then down to Iowa, which is number 2, is the wind is out in the boonies. But in northern Ohio, coming off the lake, it's close to the cities, and there's transmission lines everywhere. You don't really have to build new transmission lines in northern Ohio to do wind power. And all the farmers were ready to go. I could have made a fortune selling windmills in northern Ohio, except for one problem, which is the legislature, owned and operated by the utility companies, passed a one-sentence thing in the Ohio Code saying that windmills have to be more than 1,000 feet from the border of your property, which is ridiculous. And we had $4 billion worth of wind development ready to go in northern Ohio at great profit to all the farmers because the land is flat and they can afford an acre or 2 acres or 10 acres for 10 windmills. They would have got $7,000 or $8,000 a year in lease payments for each windmill. So a farmer could make more money selling wind than selling corn. Not pot, but more than corn. And so all these guys want their windmills. The legislature waltzes in, puts one thing in the Ohio Code, kills a $4 billion industry. Literally, one sentence in northern Ohio. And then they went further because even better wind than to West Texas is in Lake Erie. And thanks to William Hieronymus back at the Tortomara Fair,
Hey,
and whoever
can you
else.
text or do whatever you need to do?
TATANKA, you got to mute yourself.
Mute.
We'll get you a minute. So in the Lake Erie, you can generate enough offshore wind to power, much of the east. I mean, the winds in Lake Erie are actually among the best in the world. And I just read yesterday that Mike DeWine, the current governor of Ohio, was attorney general when all this development was about to happen, and he killed it. So what you've had since the mid-2010s in Ohio is the possibility to power most of the state, if not all of the state, with wind energy, and there's virtually no windmills in Ohio. It's like ridiculous and infuriating. So we'll talk further about that next week. Mila, you have a hand, and then Mary?
Yeah, Harvey, earlier you mentioned that there's quite a lot of legislation in the state of California that's been introduced to push back against the California Public Utilities Commission war on solar. And
Yes.
I'm sharing now, I believe, if people can see it, a list of legislation that was put out by the Solar Rights Alliance. And there are a number of bills here. There's I was only aware of AB Assembly Bill 2256 that was introduced by Laura Friedman, that would require the California Public Utilities Commission to include all the benefits of rooftop solar when deciding how much credit solar users get. And this would really be helpful in terms of shutting Diablo, because the California Public Utilities Commission made a ruling basically ignoring the benefits from solar as a way to rationalize the continued operation of this extraordinarily dangerous nuclear power plant, the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant, that's operated by the criminal operator, PG&E. But there are other bills. There's Assembly Bill 199 introduced by Irwin that would stop the big utility tax by capping it at $10 a month and prohibiting it from rising any faster than inflation. There's AB or Assembly Bill 2619 introduced by Connolly that would ban solar taxes and require the CPUC to revise their net metering decision to align with the state's actual clean energy goals. There's SB 1374 introduced by Becker that would restore the right of renters, farmers, and schools to make and consume their own solar energy, a right that the state took away last year when it's just amazing what's been going on in the state of California. They've really been working overtime to make solar out of reach and unaffordable. And luckily, some legislators are pushing back, and hopefully there'll be some momentum to support these important bills. There's also Assembly Bill 2054 introduced by Bauer and Kahan, or Bauer Kahan, hyphenated name, I don't know, would ban former California Public Utility Commissioners from being employed by the companies they regulate for 10 years after their terms end. Go ahead, Harvey.
Well, let me jump in on that. And this is, this is the last gasp of the fossil nuclear industry. They cannot compete and with wind and solar and
right. And then there's
oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. There is such a thing as karma.
At any rate, there are two more. Can I, if I might?
Go ahead very quickly.
Yeah. Senate bill from MIN, and we're hoping our senators closer to home would support this, would prohibit private utilities from lobbying with ratepayer funds. And we certainly know that is an unfortunate problem that's happening these days. And lastly, Assembly Bill 3118 by Wallace would make rooftop solar the official state energy of the state of California. How about that?
Well, I like that. So I want to point out, I know Mary's got a hand, but in Ohio, this thing about a utility lobbying has gone so far beyond anything that anybody imagined. And I will put this to you, and then we can wrap up, because it's really critical to our understanding of what's happened here. Ohio, is pivotal to everything that happens in America. As I say, no Republican has ever won the presidency without carrying Ohio. Only Franklin Roosevelt and Obama did it. Biden. Biden and Roosevelt are the only two presidents ever to lose Ohio as Democrats and still get elected president. The bottom line is this. The two nuclear plants in Ohio are really a travesty. And I won't go into it, but they are incredibly dangerous, as Carl Grossman certainly knows, and as we'll talk about again next week. But in order to keep these two reactors going, the biggest utility in the state, First Energy, based in Akron, bribed the chair, the Speaker of the Ohio House, Larry Householder, who, as they say, has become a household name in Ohio, and he's now in federal prison for 20 years for taking these bribes. And only one FBI agent really is responsible for that. Can talk about one person changing the world. Who knew an FBI agent would do this? So because of what they found out in the Householder case, they bribed him to get through the legislature $1 billion bailout to keep these 2 reactors operating, which is outrageous. They are so dangerous and so uneconomic. But he did it, and he got the bill through, and they killed a whole bunch of pro-solar and pro-efficiency stuff in Ohio. It's a nightmare. But they also have found out that the head of First Energy, Jones, whatever his name is, and a guy I know named Sam Randazzo, who became the chair of the Public Utilities Commission, also took bribes. Well, the guy from the utility gave bribes, and Sam took them. And they are now they just were indicted and are about to stand federal trial. This is in Ohio. And meanwhile, the governor was guilty, and his son is on the state Supreme Court, for God's sakes, refuses to recuse himself from gerrymandering cases that might affect his father. But nonetheless, this whole house of cards, these guys are going to federal prison because they prevented solar in the state of Ohio. There he is. And now, yesterday, they are approving, I can barely say this, they're approving fracking in state parks. They are now choosing company. They have killed a $4 billion wind industry, way more than $4 billion. There'd be $4 billion in the lake alone, which they won't do. Mike DeWine personally killed that when he was Ohio Attorney General. And now they're killing, they're still killing with the setback clause, at least $4 billion in windmills in the farmland in northern Ohio. And they're approving fracking in the state parks. I mean, you know, what has gone on with Ohio? So please read my article. We'll get back to that. We'll get back to it next week. I do want to mention, by the way, Tom Hartman has put out an astonishing piece, and we're going to go into great detail on this, on how the Republicans can steal the election in 24 because they control the speakership of the House. It's really frightening. You have to look at this piece. I'm going to try and get Tom on to talk about this, but I will post at our website Tom's explanation. It was very detailed, very clear on how the Republicans can legally steal the 24 election. Very disturbing, and we're going to go into it in great detail next week. Very alarming. Still 30 of you with us. You guys are fantastic. We're almost done. Mary, did you want to pipe in here, and then we're going to go? Mary Butler, Stonewall, go ahead.
Yeah.
Anybody else? This is your last chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, Jiminy, I didn't know we were getting divorced.
I didn't know we were married, but here we are. Go ahead.
I think it's funny. They should have that during a divorce too. Needless to say, I'm not into the wind power due to the fact of the birds, let alone the solar arrays, as they're called. I'm dead set against them because of the solar arrays kill birds and our insects, where the windmills are killing thousands upon thousands of birds worldwide. We're looking at around 600,000 each year are killed in the United States alone, and we're talking endangered species. There's much better things. Plus, in reality, it's garbage on the landscape. Bad enough we drove down the highway and we had to see power lines everywhere we wanted to take a good picture. Now we're going to see acres and acres of these things. And then if a tornado hit, the cleanup and the devastation alone would set us back so hard. If we did our roadways and we did our houses, we wouldn't need the windmills.
Okay, Mary, I'm going to correct you on that. We can discuss it later, but Steve has put up a very good thing on that. I know there's a big fight over a battery in Western Mass that people can talk about later, but the bottom line is that windmills do kill about a bird a year, but it's
No,
nothing
not
compared.
referring to you. We're talking
Mary.
600,000.
We get the
Okay.
numbers.
Yeah, look at the numbers, Mary. This and thank you for that. I know it's an important point of view, but we can go into detail on it. I will hotly dispute you on it. I looked into it deeply when I was trying to sell windmills. Solar panels have virtually no negative impact. There is a question of environmental impact. There is a question of recycling them. We've also, by the way, which can be done, and we've also, by the way, amazing in terms of the battery situation, even on cars now, there's a massive lithium find at the Salton Sea in California, which will really change the equation. And also, they're starting to make lithium metal, which will change the battery industry tremendously. But thank you for that, Mary. We can talk about it another time. Steve has put up this article by Tom Hartman, which is really, really critical. If we can put the link to it in the chat, we will discuss it next week in terms of what the Republicans could do to our election in 24. Paul, John Steiner, I'm glad you've been with us. Thank you so much, Camilla. All you great people. Anna, good to see you. Paul Finn, we're really great to be rejoining with you. Tatanka, Mila, so many. Carl Grossman, good to have you with us. We are almost totally out of time. Wendy, do you want to? Next week, by the way, we're going to revisit Fani Willis. 2 weeks from now, we will be off. I'm having a family reunion. Wendy, did you want to say something, please?
I did, thank you. Yeah, I have one closing remark, but I just want to address the little talk we're having about windmills and renewables. And just remember, okay, there's already so much technology as far as for batteries go with hemp, even salt water. There's so many things, and just they're turning like plant material into different plastics. So I mean, just what our imagination is limiting us to, and as far as our resources and the allocations go, I mean, these things already exist. And I mean, even like small scale kinetic sculptures, if we did like they did with the Workers' Progress Administration, where all the artists were commissioned to create things for the economy and war and everything, then why not do that for renewables and have sculptors creating small scale sculptures that are going to be non-invasive to the environment, that are individualized. I can't think of the word, but like off the grid, like each.
So Harvey, we should go ahead.
Excuse me, I'm still speaking. Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Wendy.
So thank
You're
you.
breaking
So,
up, so you're gonna have to kill your video.
okay,
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody to write their representatives about House Resolution 934 to free Julian Assange and protect free speech. Write to Biden. This is everything we do. We talk about the vote and we talk about press, and without those two things, there's nothing else. There is nothing else without free speech, without being able to oppose your government, without being able to publish factual documents. So you guys need to just take 5 minutes, please, and write your representatives to support 934 and get vocal. Talk about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And 7 o'clock tonight, Pacific time, there is another Zoom call about auditing. And do remember, people, that we're looking for somebody to run the Pacifica election. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you for that. Ron, you get the last word.
So just 2 last words, and it is George Santos. If the Republicans have never learned a lesson, they should learn that lesson.
Well, but you know, they're refusing. Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has refused to swear in the guy that was elected for that seat. And you know,
Suarez is sitting there waiting to fill that seat, and it's a critical vote.
Yes, and then the Speaker of the House can wait as long as he wants to swear in the replacement. It's infuriating. We are at 4:19 California time. This was really great. We still have 25 folks with us, and parting is such sweet sorrow, as it always is. Thank you again, Steve, for staying the course. Mike Hirsch, Wendy, everybody, Tatanka. We will see you all next week. Anna, you can tell us next week if you want about the Lovejoy reunion. I'm sorry I missed it. It must have been so much fun. Anyway, you guys, thank you. But read this Tom Hartman article. Everybody needs to read this Tom Hartman article. It will make your hair stand on end, and we will face up to the realities next week. All right, you guys, it's 4:20. Go out and toke up, and have a great week. We'll see you next week, and no nukes.
No nukes.
See you in Solartopia.
Yeah, that Mike Johnson guy, he was pivotal trying to get Trump elected, denying the election results, you know, and here he
That's
is.
right, he was.
I don't know how, you know, Garland's sitting on his hands or what the heck's going on, but all these guys, 147 people in the House that voted, you know, to put Trump into office when he lost the election, they were all implicated, you know, and here he is running the freaking House. Great.
Running it on the back of